Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our talk this morning. Oh, I can see headphones going on, that's good. Everybody's putting them on, so hopefully you can all hear me now. So, welcome to our talk this morning. My name's Matthew Littlefiled. I'm the UK Field CTO here at Tableau, and joining me on stage this morning is going to be Marc, who's going to be running us through a demonstration later on. So today we're going to be talking about unlocking the Agentic analytics platform, and we'll go into a little bit more detail of what that is in just a moment. I have to remind you though that we're a publicly traded company, so please base all of your purchasing decisions on currently available technology. But let's start. You're all here today because you've made an investment as organizations in your technology and in your data stack. This is an investment where you've set up all of the information that you have and you're trying to empower the business to make better, more data-informed decisions. But this is investment in time and cost and infrastructure. And one of the challenges that we have when we make such large investments is how do we really maximize these investments for the organization? There's probably large parts of the businesses that you work in that actually aren't necessarily using data to the best that they can be using it. They might not necessarily be using it at all. And actually this is the gap that we see between the data investments we have and actually trying to get the business to make use of what it is that we are setting up for them. And this is where the value comes in from the data. This is the whole reason why we started to bring things together. So how do we bring this gap together and how do we make it more easily accessible for the business to make use of the data and all of the investment that you've made so far? But taking a step back and zooming out a little bit, over the last 20 so years, there's been a number of changes, and where reporting started and data and analytics started was actually in the reporting side of things. Now, reporting was really static, it was really flat, and it was very difficult for us to really get those insights. But why we started to look at visual analytics is actually we wanted to make sure the business was more data informed. So not only understand what's happening in the business, but understand why that's happening in the business. And why that's important is because when we understand why is when we can start to take action on that. When we take action, that's when we really maximize the investment in our data and the infrastructure that we're putting in here. Up until that point, everything to the business is a cost. So really activating the information, the insights that we have is paramount to realizing that investment. Now, visual analytics, this was a big step change for us that allowed people to see those insights and to understand what is happening in the organization. However, this is still fraught with challenges. There are still parts of the business that struggle to use visual analytics because we make it difficult for the audience to understand and interpret these insights that we're seeing here. And this is a challenge for us. And what we're seeing at the moment is actually the rise of AI is starting to change the way that we work. There's a paradigm shift in how we might engage with those data and all the things that you've put in place here. We need it to be more accessible. We need to have the insights in the flow of work so people can change their course of direction and make most of the insights that we have here. So there's a huge step change here, and this is why we think at Tableau that actually an agentic platform that's wider than just conversational analytics is really important to maximizing the investments that you're making in data. Oh, excuse me. But what's the goal? Where are we trying to get to as organizations here? So first of all, a challenge that I'm sure everybody has been thinking about. I mean, the last 2 days, a lot of the information that we have here and all the stores and the businesses are guiding us towards this. How do we really unify all the knowledge that we have in our organization? We have lots of structured data, that's easy for us to collect together. We have lots of unstructured data, which is a wealth of knowledge that we can start to bring in and complement things. But on top of this, we then need to have an agentic layer so that we can start to really make use of this. And remember, we're using this to help make it more accessible to the rest of the business so that they can use their data and use those insights so that they can take action from this. But actually, we want to build this out in a way where that all of the organization can make use of this, not just the 30 or 40% that are currently using data and analytics today. We need to find a way that not just the data and analyst teams are using it, but the sales teams or the service teams, because this is really where the investment and the impact of that investment is going to be felt. So, for me, the what agentic analytics is much more than conversational analytics. Conversational analytics is very much a key part of this. It's a key cornerstone to starting to unlock the rest of the business and enable them to use your data and find the insights from these. But I don't think it's good enough for us to be able to just put an LLM on top of a data source, because we'll still be faced with similar challenges that we have with visual analytics, whereby we might encourage people to jump out of the systems they're currently working in to see those insights or engage with that data. This becomes starts to then silo our data that we have as well, because we have a number of different systems. And what we really want to do is start to unify what it is we have so that the business can make use of this. But visual analytics and agentic analytics is also proactive. It's going to bring us that knowledge. It's going to start to be embedded in the way that we work. And when we start having more autonomous agents, we can start kicking off workflows in those agents elsewhere in the business. And when we start thinking about things as a wider platform, actually we can start to see the value that we can get from an agentic platform rather than just something that's on a database at the moment. So let's dive a little bit deeper into our vision of what agentic analytics looks like. So our first step, as we all know, is starting to bring that together. Now, we know that most businesses have a number of different data sources within the organization. Now, there's no reason for us to silo or start to move to one. We can make use of all of this with a data orchestration layer. We can start to blend together all of the information and make it relevant to the different parts of the business. And today we have dashboards, and these dashboards are opening up data-driven insights to some of the business, and people are making use of this. The next logical step for us is to have the self-service elements. Now, this is what Tableau has been superb at for the last 20 or so years, really enabling the business to find their own insights and have those people in the organization that are finding those things and bringing their business context and knowledge to that data so that they can take actions on this. And you can see we're starting to open up a little bit more of the business to be more data-driven here. But there's a whole wealth of information that I've already mentioned in unstructured data that we can start to bring together, and with a data orchestration layer, we can start to unify those profiles for the various parts of the business that are going to make use of this. Now, unstructured data is hugely important because we have training videos, we have all of the conversations that our customers might be having with our service center, we have the notes that we might take as sales teams or partner information that we might be working with, and this is valuable information to blend together with our structured information so that you can get a true picture of what is happening in the organization. This then starts to open the door to AI for us. So our semantic model is hugely important. It's the business context that drives our agents and our AI, and that's what gives us that real insights that are personalized to the business, but personalized to you and your business, and knowing what it is that you need to get from it to take action. And at Tableau, we actually think the semantic model should be open. So we give the option to bring in other semantic models if you want to, because actually you're investing that context into different systems, but you should be able to bring this in here. And it's hugely important so that we don't silo the business into certain vendors or have vendor lock-in here. We've also announced this week that actually we're working with Snowflake and DBT Labs to create an open standards around semantic models, so that when we're talking to different systems, actually there's a common language around the context, which is key to enabling conversational analytics within the business. So using conversational analytics, we're then opening up more to the business. We're lowering the barrier to entry. We're reducing that friction for people to gain those data insights that they need to take actions in the business. And this is very much a cornerstone. And natural language and natural language interface is actually the way and the expectation that all of us are now starting to expect from the business when we're working with the various systems and technologies that we have in our organizations. So this is going to start opening the door for the business. But we shouldn't stop there. We should continue to go further, because we don't just have generative AI. We've got predictive AI and we've got prescriptive AI. So we shouldn't necessarily neglect this when we're thinking about a truly agentic platform. Our natural language conversations with our data shouldn't just tell us what's happening or what has happened in the past. It should tell us what actually could happen in the future and what things we could do to make changes to those data. data, or those actions or those things in the business. We revert back to a couple of slides ago when we talked about the reason why we're all here is to make people more data informed so they can understand what's happening, but why it's happening and how they can make changes to that. And this is where we can start to blend this predictive and prescriptive analytics, AI, into the analytics itself and actually have that available for everybody to make use of. But we shouldn't stop there either, because people don't necessarily work in a number of different systems, or certainly they don't want to work in a number of different systems. At the moment, we probably find that if I need to understand something or look a little bit deeper at the data of our business to make a decision, I might have to swivel chair to another system. I might have to go to the data team and ask for a question and get an answer back in a couple of weeks' time. But what we need to do is we need to really embed the agentic AI and the agentic analytics in the flow of work. So this actually means it needs to be on their mobile phones when they're engaging with their customers or speaking with their partners. It needs to have proactive insights so that when I start my day, I have the numbers that I need to make decisions on my actions for the day. They're ready for me to go and use. But then making use of all of the agentic conversations there as well, seeing the context of why these numbers are important, what I can go and make changes to go and impact in the organization here as well. And this is key to starting to open up and lower the barrier of entry to data and insights for the organization. But the final one here is actually the most important one, and it's actionability. All of this doesn't really matter if people aren't taking actions on their insights. And this is where we need to make this really easy for the business to go and make use of. With all of the different parts that we see here and thinking about things as a wide agentic analytics platform for the organization, it means we can then help them to take those actions. So the actions could be as simple as sending the message or sending the information to somebody else in the organization or making sure a team is aware of this. It could also be updating information, but it could be as complex as encouraging or setting off a workflow that might put somebody on a personalized marketing campaign because we know that this part of the business or this customer is not necessarily trending in the right direction. So how do we go and trigger that so that that can get started? And let's not forget as well, as soon as we start using agents in our organizations, we're going to have more agents, and these are going to become autonomous. So how do we drive those agents to the right direction and the right actions as well? And this is how we can use actionability to really realize the value of what it is we're doing. And this is how we see the agentic platform and the wider scope of things for the business. So, to summarize before we go into something a little bit deeper in terms of a demonstration, without Tableau, we feel that you're going to get your conversational analytics, you're going to get some of that, but you're not necessarily going to maximize the investment that you are all making in the organization. But with Tableau, we can start to widen that conversation. We can embed our analytics in the flow of work and make it easier for people to understand what it is that's happening, why it's happening, but then really easily be able to take action on that so that they can drive and really use the data and the investments that you've made already. So I will pause there and I will hand over to Mark, who's going to take us through a little bit of a product demonstration.
Cool. Thank you, Matt. Little nod, can everyone hear me? So my mic being there's loads of nods. 200 people nodding at you. Before we dive into the analytics and the demo, I'm going to talk about something that we've all done before, right? You all know that chair that sits in the corner of your bedroom and it just piles up with clothes. And you know that to fold and hang them, it's just going to take a minute or two, but you don't do it. And you don't do it, not because it's hard, but because it isn't effortless. And analytics is the same. If there's too many steps between insight and action, people don't do it. And they don't do it even if it costs them time and money. So my name's Marc Hockfield, I'm a Principal Solution Engineer here at Tableau, and in this demo you're going to see how Tableau Next and the analytics platform allows you to work in the flow of work, it allows you to ask questions of your data, have a conversation, but crucially it allows you to take action on those things in the same flow. So let's kick off with a screen. Let's see how many clicks I have to take to get this going. Oh, this is not playing, let's try clicking there. Let's click yes on here instead. This might be a short video. It's not going.
down to the booth to see.
So yeah, we joked that if this didn't open when we sent it, Matt would do this in the form of dance. So fire away. Okay.
Best laid plans.
Best laid plans indeed. I'm going to put the clicker down and move on. Anything you got on there? In the meantime, let's talk a little about what the next platform actually lets you show and work with. So what you can see is, what you would be able to see, is the idea of agents sitting within your instant messaging platform. So you are working in Slack or in Teams, and you're getting data from the next platform embedded headlessly into your flow of work. So if you are an instant messaging system, you don't want to swivel chair elsewhere. You don't want to move elsewhere because that's productivity. That's the equivalent of folding and hanging your laundry. You don't want to be doing that. So metrics that are built out in the next platform can be embedded headlessly just about anywhere you like. You would have seen it sitting in Slack, but it could be other instant messaging systems as well. They are laid out in a manner that's really straightforward and simple, because when you start divesting data down from the analysts and to the kind of coalface and the business users, they might not be as data fluent as all the people in the room, all the data professionals that you see and you work with on a day-to-day basis. So the metrics that you would see would be straightforward line charts, very clear, very easy, prominent numbers, and you'd also get natural language summaries of all the information that's being passed out, so everyone can understand what's being seen. From there, if you want to dive deeper, typically you'd have to move into another system where you speak to an analyst to move further, but once the next platform is sitting with your instant messaging system, you can press a button and you can get to an agent, ask questions from within Slack, from within your IM tool, and get answers in that way. That's useful, but everyone's doing conversational analytics with data these days. The real power would be the fact that because you are sitting on the same stack as your data and your IM system, you can then ask it to perform tasks. So in the example that you were going to see, it's gone totally black now, it gets better and better, and that's not even my company. In the example that you would see, it was going to ask a question of around which are our bottom 10 performing products, give the answer around it, give us some trends around that as well. It would give you natural language information about what is happening in the space, and then you can say, create a marketing segment from this information so that we can market to people. And that's the bridge between insight and analytics.
So if you could just say that all again.
I can say all that again, here we go. So you're sitting within Slack, you're getting information, this is all chat, this is anecdotal. You actually want some proper hard information, and within here you're getting these headless embedded systems. Natural language, clear charts, bands as we call them, big ass numbers, so nice and clear for everyone. But if you've got further questions, you can click on the chart itself, but quite often you'll want some area where your people can work together. You don't want to go into a dashboard tool, you want to be doing it in your instant messaging system, and for that, in Slack, there's canvases. You can click on those, and these are live metrics being taken from the next platform and embedded headlessly into the IM system. These are the kind of gold star metrics for your team, get them cleanly and easily, everyone can understand them, but to dive deeper, you can start asking questions of your data. In this case, the bottom 10 performing products. This goes out to the semantic layer, so you're going from your instant messaging system to your semantic layer to the universe of data that lives behind it. Obviously it understands that tech means technology because you've got this robust layer sitting behind it, and it will come out with an answer in just a moment, which will give you the information you need in natural language, the data points, and then also the trends that you'll see in a second. So the idea is you're not moving anywhere. You're staying in the flow of work. You don't have to go to another system, log in, etc. There it is, trends, information, the bottom 10 performing products. And that's an insight and that's useful information, but until it's translated into something, it's just someone's project, someone's pocket idea. So ask the question at the bottom. I think this is paused. There you go. Yeah, this is paused. So I'm going to click. God, Lord help me. Just move on. We'll move on to. There you go. The other things that you would have seen, and these are key and important, is the technology's let me down, but it's PowerPoint and not Tableau, I'm quite pleased to say. You'd have seen the movement of creating a segment within your data set from within Slack. Let's do it, move this, because when you move from insight to action, stuff gets done and the business moves forward. The rest of the demo would have looked at actually live within the Next platform, the ability to ask not just questions and conversations about your data, what are we doing in this area, what's happening, how's the following been performing? But the example you would have seen would have been a review with one of your sales managers and they're not performing and you want to find out why and what they could do better. Everyone talks about analytics and insights and conversations with data, but the real bridge is the ability to turn around and say, okay, well, what should we do about it? And the example that you would have seen would be the ability to, what it would have gone away and done is looked at all the information sitting in your database and work out a next best action. So if you're coaching someone on how they can improve sales or improve the way they're working, you've got this massive universe, this phalanx of data around, which you can query and say, people who are in a similar position do the following things to get out of it. Or the top performing people, or the top performing products or information or machines, the things that you're working with, you can find out next best actions. The next thing you would have seen with that being Tracy together saying, make me a summary of the history, what's happening right now, previous performance, and suggestions to move forward. And it's those suggestions to move forward that means you can sit down with someone and say, I've got all the information about what you've done. Great, it's a history lesson. What's important is to say, here's how you will move forward. And that is the ace in the hole that Tableau and the Next platform brings to you. Data. Everyone's got data. We're bringing it together. It's being orchestrated in data clouds. You put a semantic layer on that. Your business can talk now to your data. And you're divesting that skill, that rarefied skill where you'd have to get an analyst involved. You're divesting that to your end user. That means it needs to be simple. It needs to be clear. You can put fantastic visualizations on that. So far, so dashboard. Business insights is kind of where we are. It's a great leveler. You know, Tableau led the field in it, but once you've got conversational analytics, everyone is doing this. And of course, you know, we're no different. But you've still got that bridge between business insights and outcomes. You can find out all you want, but if you don't action it, it's just a hobby. So the ability to take action within a system is probably the key part and the key differentiator of the Tableau Next platform right now. So that is what takes you to the business outcomes, and that is where we really sell ourselves. And of course, once you're moving away and you're taking this information away from the analysts and putting it in the hands of hundreds or thousands of people actually working in the knowledge area, you're combining people's knowledge and their domain knowledge with the data, and that's where the real power comes in. And when you're scaling that not just around 10, 50, but to 100 or 1,000, everyone gets 1% quicker. 2% more efficient, 3%, 4%, and scaled out, that is a massive, massive difference. I'm going to close out. If the technology will let me do one more click. I'm going to close out with Tableau's mission statement. It's always been helping people see and understand data. We still do it, we stand by it, we do it brilliantly, but the understanding data part has now moved into clear visualizations for everyone, natural language descriptions, conversations, iterative discussions with your data. But ultimately, you help people see, understand, and then act on data. Because again, insight without action is just a hobby. And actions is what moves the business forward, and moving the business forward is why we're all in the room today. Thank you very much.